Hi everyone, Trina Kruger here, your nutrition educator at McDermott for the GUM program. And I'm excited today to talk to you guys about using MyPlate and how it will help you eat healthier and have a healthy body. First of all, let's talk about what is your body made up of? Okay, so basically, our bodies are made up of whatever food we put in them. You are what you eat is real, okay? So I want you to think today about something that you've eaten that was healthy and something that you ate that was unhealthy. And maybe think about what you could swap out the unhealthy item for something healthy. So as we talk through our lesson today, I want you to think about the food choices that you're making throughout your day. What would be even extra awesome is if you sat down and actually wrote them all out. Because true story, we tend to eat kind of mindlessly. We are surrounded by food all the time or most of the time. And so it's really easy to just grab food we eat and put it in our mouths, especially food that you don't have to prepare, that you can just open up and start eating right away. So we have to be really careful if we want our body to feel good and last a long time. You have to actually stop and think about what foods you're putting in your body and what they're doing for you, okay? Here, this picture is an example of two boys who are made up of what they choose to eat, okay? On the one side, we've got a kiddo who's eating lots of sugar, high-fat foods, processed foods, and unfortunately, this guy is gonna have a lot of health problems in his future. He's probably looking at things like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, high blood pressure, and all the issues that can come with that. You're tired, your body aches, there's lots of inflammation and pain. Okay, on the right-hand side, we've got a kid who is filling his body up with healthy fruits and vegetables. He is going to feel good. His body is going to last a long time. All that nutritious food that you put inside your body is like making deposits in a bank, and your body will draw on that nutrition for a long time to come. It's setting up your bones, your organs, your brain, your skin, all these things that it has an effect on. So your food has a direct correlation to how you feel emotionally and physically. Okay, so we're going to talk about MyPlate, all right, which is something that our government has put out to help us make food choices, okay? So if you notice on MyPlate, there's several different sections, okay? We've got a fruit, vegetable, grain, protein, and dairy. And those are all things that we should be consuming ideally at every meal if possible. That would be the ultimate, okay? So first we're going to talk about fruits and vegetables, okay? And if you notice, vegetables kind of takes up a big part of the plate. Grains and vegetables are probably the two biggest sections, okay? So we want to try to get vegetables. Fruits usually a little easier to get in our diet because it's sweet, it's easy to eat. So vegetables we have to work harder at, but so important, okay? How many fruits and vegetables are we supposed to be eating every day? Does anybody know? It's 5. 5 fruits and vegetables are supposed to be eaten every day. Most kids tend to only get 1 to 2 servings of fruits or veggies a day. Okay, so it puts you at risk for becoming obese, getting heart disease, and cancer when you become older. So a game that I like to try to play is to have a fruit or vegetable every time I eat, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a snack. I try to always include a fruit or vegetable, okay? So that's gonna help you feel good. Choose less often juice. Now, I know that's surprising because a lot of times we think juice is so good for us, but the problem with juice is that it's really high in sugar. A lot of times it has added sugar, but even if it's just fruit sugar, it still is a concentrated amount of fruit sugar. And it's so much better for you to just actually eat the piece of fruit because you get the fiber and you get all the nutrition, and it has far less sugar in it than drinking a glass of orange juice. You'll feel full a lot faster by actually eating an orange versus drinking a glass of orange juice, okay? And then we've got some fried vegetables here, okay? Too much fat and the high heat actually destroys the nutrients. So yes, these are vegetables, but most of the nutrition has been destroyed and it's got fat added to it. Smoothies. I know I'm a huge fan of Jamba Juice, I'm not gonna lie, but we don't want to have these too often because they really are kind of like dessert. They actually have a lot of added sugar in them, plus that fruit sugar. So again, it's better to just eat the whole fruit or make your own smoothie at home so that you can control how much sweetener and sugar is going into it. Next, we're going to talk about grains. Okay, so grains is super important, but not just any grains, okay? Grains, we want to make half of them whole grains, okay? And we'll talk about that. So there's whole grains and there's grains that are not whole. And basically, it's just like it sounds. Whole grains means that when it was used to make whatever it is you're eating, the whole entire piece of grain was used, okay? And lots of grains that are light in color and white, the grain, only a portion of it's been used. And so a lot of the nutrition's been taken out, okay? So eat no more than the size of your fist at a time is a good rule for eating grains, okay? We don't want to eat too much grains, especially if they're white. Okay, so here again, what is whole grains? Whole wheat flour, wheat bran, and whole oats are all examples of whole grains. Not a whole grain is anything that says made with whole grain, multigrain, or enriched wheat flour. So if you go, stop the video right now after I tell you to do this and go run and grab a loaf of bread from your cupboard and look at the label and see what the very first ingredient in that loaf of bread is, okay? If it says whole wheat flour or wheat bran as the first ingredient, then you're good to go. It should be a whole grain bread. But if it says made with whole grain, multigrain, or enriched wheat flour, then that is not made with whole grain. Okay, so here's an example of a label where the first ingredient is whole grain wheat flour. That means it was made with the whole grain, so it's gonna have more nutrition, more vitamins and minerals for your body, and more fiber, which is super important. I have another video on that, go check it out. So out of these three, let's play a little game. Which one do you think is a whole grain? If you said the Quaker Oats, old-fashioned oats, you are correct. It says it right there, 100%. So it's the only item that you can see here that's made 100% with whole grains. The other two, they're kind of tricky because it sounds like they're made with whole grains, and they probably do have some whole grains in them, but it's not 100%. So they'll have a few benefits, but not as many as the Quaker Oats. Okay, so these are the kind of whole grains that you want to choose for. You're going for brown. The brown colors that mean more fiber and that the whole grain was used. These are the kinds of foods we want to choose less often. I know they're delicious, you guys, but they just don't have the nutrition that your body needs. The cereal is especially tricky because cereal like Fruit Loops is also, not only does it not have fiber, but it's loaded with sugar. So here's examples of popular cereals and how much sugar each one of them have. As you can see, Raisin Bran has the most. Part of that is because it's got raisins in it, which are high in fruit sugar. But you know, I don't know if you spot your favorite here, but the less sugar and the more fiber that your cereal has, the better. So Cheerios is one of your best bets because it actually has more fiber than it has sugar, just plain Cheerios. So that is a cereal that's good for you. It's made of whole grain and hardly has any sugar in it. I know it seems kind of boring, but if you eat Cheerios and you add some fruit, man, you've got yourself a good breakfast already there. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is protein. Protein's probably a word that you've heard a lot. Maybe you don't know what that is, but it's basically any food that contains the building blocks that our body needs in order to create blood cells and rebuild the muscles and tissues in our body. So it's super important for growing, for strengthening, for repairing. We need protein in our diet. All meat falls in the category of protein, but that does not mean that all meat sources are good for you. And there are other sources of protein that don't have to be meat. And here's some examples. These are all lean proteins. That means they're low in fat, but high in protein, and they're really good for you and help you build those strong muscles. These are the kinds of proteins we want to choose less often. They're really high in fat, which can clog your arteries and lead to heart attacks. So these are the kind of foods that you want to save for special occasions, but not to eat as a regular part of your everyday diet. And the next category we're going to talk about is dairy. And as we mentioned before, dairy is really important for strong bones and teeth. Okay, dairy doesn't have to just come from milk, although that's an easy popular source, but it can also come from things like string cheese, cottage cheese, and yogurt. These are the kind of dairy sources that we want to choose less often because they're high in fat or really high in sugar or both. Instead of drinking whole milk, 1% or 2% are better options for your heart. Okay, speaking of fat gets a bad rap, but as I've talked about before, fats and oils are actually really important for you, but we want to make sure that we're choosing healthy fats that are found in items like these. These are the kinds of fats that are good for your heart and your other organs. These are the kinds of fats that we want to choose less often. These foods are high in trans fats and saturated fats, which make them able to last a long time. They can sit on the shelf like Doritos, or sit in a store for longer. They hold their structure better, but they actually clog your arteries and again can lead to heart attacks. So these are the kinds of foods that are okay to have for special occasions, but again, you want to be careful how often you're putting them into your body. Remember, you only have one heart, so be good to it. Okay, I know we've covered a lot of things today. It might seem a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of things to consider when trying to choose a healthy lifestyle. But I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I want you to think about one thing that you're doing that is good, that we've gone over and you're like, yeah, I do that, I'm doing that. Maybe you're eating breakfast. Maybe you're really good at getting dairy in your diet. Maybe you're awesome about eating fruits. And so pick one thing that you're doing good at and write it down. And then I want you to think about, with everything we've talked about, think of one thing that you know that you could improve on. Now, we all can do things to eat healthier, myself included, and I teach about this. There's always things and changes that we can make to eat healthier. So I want you to pick one thing and make a goal, whether it's once a day, you want to make sure you eat a vegetable and just start with one time a day. Or maybe you already eat vegetables, but your source of protein is not very good. Maybe you feel like you're eating too much fatty foods, and so you want to cut down on unhealthy fats and find a source of a healthier fat. Maybe find a nut that you like to eat, or eat avocado a little more often. Maybe you're skipping breakfast, so maybe choosing to eat a healthy breakfast. Whatever it might be, I want you to write your goal down and put it on a mirror where you can see it, and then shoot for it. You've got one body, and I want you to take good care of it so it can take good care of you your whole life long. In the next section, I'm going to show you a breakfast that I had the other day and how it fits into my plate, and see how I did. Hey you guys, just wanted to show you an example of my breakfast this morning, and how we can do MyPlate with it. So take a minute, look at it, see if you can identify the different pieces of MyPlate. So underneath here, I've got a piece of whole grain toast. All right. On top, I've got a fried egg. Then on top of that, I have some slices of avocado. I know they're hard to see, but they're under there. And then on top of that, I've got some greens, some leafy greens. And then right here, I've got a grapefruit. So let's see if you got them all, if I got them all already. So I've got my whole grain right there, a serving of whole grain. That bread's about the size of my fist, size-wise, not as thick, obviously. Then I've got an egg, which gives me my protein for building muscles. So the bread gives me a good source of energy. The protein for helping build and strengthen my muscles. There's also other vitamins and minerals that are in both of these. I've got avocado, which is a healthy fat. I know that that's not on my plate, but that is also an important part of diet, is that. I've got some greens here for my vegetable, and then I've got a piece of fruit here for my fruit portion. So I think the only thing I'm missing is something for dairy. If I go get a glass of milk, I'm not a big milk drinker, so I don't normally just drink milk, but I know I'll pick up my dairy in other ways throughout the day. So there you go. Here's another example of how to use MyPlate for breakfast.